on For the Love of Freedom. I'm your host, Danielle Walker, and this is a show where we get to meet extraordinary people who are disrupting the status quo. We explore the stories that shape their perspectives and learn what drives them to bring freedom to the world. My guest today is Craig Sawman Sawyer. If you've been watching The State of Freedom for a while, you might recall our interview with Craig from last October. It was fantastic. Craig is a former Navy SEAL who operated with SEAL Team 1. He then went on to the Federal Air Marshal Service as an agent and supervisor. He served in high threat mobile security contracting, film and television tech advising, and personal security training for the public. He served in Desert Shield and Desert Storm, resulting in decoration for his heroic service. He's also that Craig, you've done so much. You also ran the specialized teams responsible for providing security to high threat politicians and dignitaries, including during their visits to high threat war zone regions. He is an accomplished motocross racer. He's worked as an actor, producer, trainer, technical advisor in the film industry, and all around Renaissance man. In 2013, he and three other veterans fought to protect rhinos from poaching in South Africa, which is near and dear to my heart. And he returned, or he rather returned, turned his attention and significant skill to addressing the rampant atrocity of child trafficking in America. In 2017, he founded Veterans for Child Rescue. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that you have a 100% conviction rate for the traffickers that your team has targeted. Welcome to the show, Craig. I'm so happy to have you with me today.
Thank you. Yeah, we do have a 100% conviction rate. We're grateful for that. And I went for my dreams in my life, so I checked off a lot of experiences, and I tried hard. And but I have to say, man, I look back on it, and it's just trinkets now. It means so little compared to the tangible um, results that we're seeing. Taking predators who are hunting children here in our country and seeing them be handcuffed and hauled off to jail and put in
Yeah.
prison to rape no more eclipses everything I've done in my past. And a lot of my teammates are saying that same thing. They're having that same observation of it, like, man, this feels really right. And so we're grateful to be able to serve and do something good in a crazy, tumultuous world.
Yeah, well, thank you for what you're doing. And I know that you couldn't be as successful as you were if you hadn't had all those other experiences. So we know God uses everything, and that equipping was vital
He
to your
does.
success today.
He does use it all, even when we don't understand it. Probably especially when we don't understand, why me, Father? Why have you put me through, some of the challenges in life and the things that are painful? And it's not until you start to see what He was actually doing with it that you look
Yeah,
back and go, "Oh wow, how beautiful!"
yeah,
And thank you, right? And you
yeah,
can look back
exactly.
on the pain and the challenges and the difficulty, and you're like, "Man, I see now what you were building in me." What the experience meant, what I was to learn from that, and what you are allowing me to do now. I get
Yeah,
it, Father. It feels so dumb, like you don't see it. Like it's like a rat in a maze. He sees it all. He knows where it's going. And
yeah,
so we have to just have faith and go. I trust you, Daddy. Abba, Father. I
that's
trust
right.
you. So let's go.
That's
But
right.
fantastic awareness that just as it does open up and you begin to see in retrospect, you're like, wow, man, he's beautiful. He's so good.
Yeah, and
So
such an honor to be part of something so meaningful that's literally changing people's lives for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Well, Craig,
we're
I always
thankful.
start out the show with a scripture to frame the conversation, and today's scripture is Second Chronicles chapter 16 verse 7, and it says, "But you be strong and do not lose courage, for there is reward in your work."
Mhm.
And this seemed so appropriate because the backdrop for this scripture is when King Asa, who's a descendant of King David, had just risen to power, and he was going out and demolishing foreign altars, including those that were used for child sacrifice.
Mhm.
And at that time, he led the people back to a place of covenant and seeking the Lord. And your work today is tearing down a lot of those modern day altars of child sacrifice And anyone who follows you on X can see that your heart is to return people to covenant with our Creator God. So thank you for that. It's
Man,
such
it's
an
a
honor to
privilege.
have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, before we get to the topic at hand, if you don't mind, if we could spend a minute on the Israel Iran conflict. It's not the main topic at all, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to get your insights because you're so knowledgeable in this
Sure.
arena. What's your take on where things are and where things may go with that?
Well, we just came off a big operation that was kind of all consuming with our org, and we're doing some restructuring and onboarding a new intel and investigations team and the new huge conference and training coming up. I'm flying back out tomorrow. So
Okay.
I've been kind of head down and swamped with local work. And so I haven't been as tuned into this global chain of events as I normally have been throughout my life. I'll just say I see China as being, quite ready to back Iran. And I used to really I have a lot of concern over these events. And now I realize it's all the creator's universe. It's all his world.
Yeah.
And I used to think that it was my job to save the day, to try to stand up and build a program and run an operation and do the thing to make it better. And then I began to realize that these things are a lot of it, not destiny, but it's these things must happen. It's part of our development and learning process. And so I've kind of learned to take my hands off the wheel. That country song, Jesus Take the Wheel.
Yep.
And like another analogy is like ground your ruck, like let that rucksack fall to the ground behind you, because it's not all your burden to carry. It's not that I don't care. It's that I'm not eaten up with the worry
Yeah.
of me having to fix it anymore, because I have virtually no say
Yeah.
other than what my relationship with the creator of all of it. So I've learned to have a peace in it now. Like I'm walking like a little baby chicken under the wing of my big daddy. My big daddy's Yahweh Sabaoth. He is the creator of everything. He is in Yeshua and Jesus Christ. I mean, just when you realize who spoke everything into existence, even the fallen, who are
Yeah.
ruining everything, he lets them do what they're doing for a season so that we're learning from the contrast between good and evil. Everything's a choice. We've been given free will. What will we learn through it? And now I'm like, okay, this is a learning course. We're to learn through it. We're to do our best, but it's not on me to save the day for everybody. And for me personally, I'm able to walk with a lot more faith, knowing that, and a lot more grace,
Yeah.
knowing that it's all literally all His. So for me, more so than any other major conflict, I am at peace through it, come what may, um, because I don't have any anxiety over the outcome, because I know whose
Who's
universe
in
that is, and I know who gets the outcome that He was after in the end. So I'm good with that. So I'm just navigating it now, um, in an entirely different space.
Yeah.
And that probably should have occurred to me a lot sooner in my life. But I think when you get to a high level of operations with a huge federal government behind you and all the assets and the aircraft, the whole military and intelligence community apparatus and the funding and all of that, that you can make just about anything happen around the world that you pretty much want to as a nation. When you're part of that big mechanism, you get to where you're used to solving problems, and every problem that comes up, you feel like you need to be part of that solution. And as a child of the Most High God, I'm starting to realize more and more, my lane's not to fix everything. My lane's to obey and to learn
Yeah.
and to grow and to give love. And
That's so
I'll
good.
solve whatever problems I can. I'll save as many as I can. I'll minister and love as many as I can. But I realize I was never meant to save it all, and it's not on me. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's where I'm coming from now.
Well, it's a good answer, and I think it's probably one that's bringing a lot of peace and encouragement to people who, might be staring at the TV screen, with their hands clinging to the arms of the of
Yeah.
the love seat, instead, or the recliner, instead of saying, you know what, I can pray. I can pray about this, and I can see what it is the Lord would have me do specifically, and everything else is
Yeah.
His job.
Yeah, that worry and that fear can be crippling for people, and I don't want that
Yeah.
for them, and neither does the Creator. 365 times in the Bible it says, "Do not be afraid." And why? Because if you understand the magnitude of His power, how literally we are all held together at the subatomic particle level by His will, literally, then you realize nothing's going to happen, and nothing gets by Him. Nothing happens that he doesn't ultimately allow for our
Yeah.
long-term greater good. So horrible as some things may seem, it all ends up being okay
Yeah.
in the end. So
Well,
doesn't mean we
let's
shouldn't try, but it just means we shouldn't sweat the load as we do.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Let's turn to the work you're doing now. You obviously have a lot of experience going after bad guys and protecting good people from them. Would you just give us a little backdrop? What turned your attention to child trafficking in the first place, and what led you to found this organization?
Yeah, well, it came back to a conversation that I had with a friend, and he'd grown up just north of Houston in the area that I had, and um, I was deploying overseas for a series of contracts, high threat mobile security stuff over in the war zones, and Africa for the Rhino Wars, and that for a TV series, and he was letting me know about child trafficking, and by his description, I understood that he was describing a covert operation run
Mhm.
domestically here in our nation, but at industrial scale, and it horrified me to recognize the earmarks of it. Like, this is a covert operation, meaning this is, and nothing runs at industrial scale without our government being well informed on it, if not running it. And that's when I realized, my God, this is full blown evil against the most precious, against the children, against the very most innocent, least deserving of harm. This is an intentional, horrific abuse on the most innocent at industrial scale in our nation. And I realized, oh man, God help us if 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 Yahweh decides to drop the hammer on us. If God Almighty looks down on us as he has numerous cultures throughout human history who have put their children through the fire to Baal
Yeah.
and Moloch and all these abominations before him, defiled his most precious little ones. What is going to befall us if we don't turn? So I believe right now that we are in a time of exposure, a season of exposure where we're all supposed to recognize what's being done, whether you think it's good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, if you're even halfway healthy, you have to see child torture as a horrific evil.
Yeah.
We're supposed to see that we've allowed it, and it's on us to start flipping some tables over and revolt against it. And I say we because we, the citizens, are supposed to be the most powerful people in this constitutional republic. We are supposed to run our nation through our elected officials. And we've gotten collectively so comfortable and so preoccupied, so distracted, that we've taken our hands off the wheel and let the demons drive the bus into every obstacle and off every cliff there is.
Yeah.
And like right now, I think our pants are down around our ankles as far as national security compared to China. I heard Pete Hegseth, the SecDef, say on a video clip just yesterday, he was like, China's been, while we've been dismantling our military under Obama and Biden administrations, China's been building and building and building. And they're specifically not training for a past war like the United States tends to do,
Yeah.
half-heartedly prepare for the last war 10 or 20 years ago that we just fought. But China's been specifically preparing to defeat the United States of America for decades and decades now. And we've let them and we have dismantled our military while they've built theirs. So Pete said they've run 100 war games in the Pentagon against China, and they've measured it every direction. He said 100 out of 100 times China wins. China won every one of those war games. So he's
Wow.
like, man, we're not where we once were. We're not where a lot of the American people think we are, as far as our military might. So I think we're in a pretty precarious spot. But again, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
Again, it's not up to me. But I think that's the time we're in. We're in a chaotic time of conflict, and I think we are supposed to realize that we have not run our country. We've let it hands of the wolves who have corrupted our nation and defiled her and brought us into a place of deep and extensive corruption. And unless Dan Bongino and Kash Patel purge the Federal Bureau of Investigations of hundreds of corrupt agents and prosecute them, then we are not going to recover as a nation, because the Bureau, can investigate the other intelligence agencies who have also been corrupted, and the local law enforcement agencies that we see in places like Tennessee, where there's pretty extensive corruption. That's going to continue unless a higher investigation comes down and rectifies the situation and brings meaningful correction. So
Yeah.
I do hope and I pray that those two men purge the Bureau to the degree necessary. I think they need to do it carefully and accurately. But if they do it in good faith, there's going to be all the agents that were part of all these false flag events that have betrayed our nation so deeply. Anybody in the intelligence community has been watching those, and a lot of civilians watching and see exactly all the manipulation
Yeah.
and the government complicity in these things. It's like, really, you're operating against your own citizens. Like, how did you think that was going to work out? If anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful, though, that we get this ship rectified, and our DOJ serving in good faith again, and our judicial system prosecuting again. That we get George Soros's rancid fingers out of our system.
Yeah.
We can't allow judges who have been paid not to prosecute to sit on the bench any longer. We know that's extensive.
Yeah.
Every major city has a judge and DA who have been funded by George Soros with the agreement that they would not prosecute entire categories of harmful crime, including child trafficking.
Yeah.
We can't survive that as a nation. That's a catastrophic ideological subversion. That is a deep betrayal that causes extensive destruction.
Yeah.
But yet there it sits. It's been discussed in open congressional session and still hasn't been corrected. So we got a swamp to drain, but there's the great opportunity. There's the beauty. It's like, hey, look, man, we get to be the generation that brings about meaningful correction and restoration of legitimacy, so
Yeah.
that our system works the way that our founding fathers intended, and that it's honorable.
Yeah.
And then we're not having forever wars, and we're not bombing villages for defense contractors to make billions and billions of dollars. I'd love to see us just defend our own nation again,
Yeah.
rather than dabble in all these regime changes and so many of the rabbit trails that we get caught up in end up in mission creep that take us off of anything honorable and good. So I see it as a time of turmoil, but a time of great possibility.
It is.
If only we'll seize the day and seize that opportunity and turn the ship back around and focus on a true north, heading towards that which is righteous and good, we can do a lot. But if we sit back and do half-hearted measure, and then the demons are just going to infest immediately when that next election happens, and it'll all be torn down immediately. We'll be in a disaster zone.
Yeah. When you were talking about George Soros, there's been a lot increasing amount of data coming out that it wasn't just George Soros funding it, it was us. George Soros was using tax dollars. Tax
Yeah.
dollars were being funneled to him to subvert the American public. To me, that's treason of the highest order, by both the people who funneled the money and George Soros himself, if he's even an American citizen, which I'm not certain that he is. But
You're
I,
absolutely right. Yeah, and his son and his whole network are
yeah,
just as complicit. I see people, they're so soft now. They're like, he should be made to leave the country. I'm like,
come on.
he should be put on trial, probably by a military tribunal, according to his crimes against our nation. I don't care what
Yeah.
nation he's a citizen of. I do know that he's from Hungary and he's not welcome there. Neither of any of his allies or his businesses. And I've heard that he's banned from 3 or 4 or 5 other countries as well. Yet he's allowed to operate directly against us in broad daylight, decade after decade. It seems so stupid, Danielle. I mean, I've heard him talk about it in open congressional sessions. So it's not like it's a theory or that somehow unknown. Everybody knows he's doing it. And yeah, he's a master at funneling our taxpayer dollars that go to things like the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization or their Center for Disease, CDC, and other federally funded projects. For whatever reason, he's got his fingers in that, and he diverts a lot of that into his own NGOs. And he's the one behind Antifa and BLM, rioting and burning our cities down. And half our citizens are so uninformed, they don't even recognize what's happening. They're like, oh, it's democracy. No, it's subversion. You're being betrayed. Your tax dollars are going to burn down your own city. And it's just, anyway. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a sickness, and it's evil. It's sin. It's deep dysfunction, and it's all orchestrated by the fallen. So the more you investigate this at a high level, you'll go until you see everything is connected spiritually. Everything ultimately has a spiritual motive, and it is that original conflict between the two kingdoms of good and evil. Yeah. And I believe those that run the world with the most wealth and power are in league with the fallen. And I think that's why they're allowed that wealth and power, because earth is under a fallen state. Satan is the god of this world, small g, for a season until King Jesus returns. And so no wonder, scumbags are the ones that are the biggest billionaires or the biggest wealth and power. People are like, how can this person or that person be such a bigwig? They're not even smart, and they're a horrible person. Their family hates them, this and that, and they're not even a wise business person. How are they? Because they're part of the club. Yeah. Trump calls it the cabal to put a short term on this global network of corruption. Call it what you want, but it is an agenda run ultimately, I believe, by the fallen. Yeah. And you got weak humans who want that wealth and power, and they'll serve the fallen to get a position of wealth and power. And so interwoven with all that, what ties all these networks of corruption together is the children. Yeah. Because they are the high value target for the fallen. That's how Satan makes war on the Father, is by defiling and destroying the most precious little ones, thinking that he's hurting the Father. And I'm sure it breaks his heart, but with that comes anger and wrath.
Yeah. And I think we'll see that too. I do think we'll see that too, because God's wrath is mercy to the evil, is his mercy to those who are being oppressed. Absolutely.
Well, and it's beautiful too. I've talked about a lot of dysfunction and darkness just to answer your question, but I want to just remind everybody the beauty, what we see, the healing. These survivors, so many of the ones that we interviewed that have been through horrific satanic ritual abuse and others, rape and abduction and all the stuff that we deal with, the ones that have been beautifully healed, it's always Jesus. Yeah. They're like, I know him. He came to me when I was tormented, came to me when I was being deeply traumatized in a highly demonized ritual ceremony. He came to me to comfort me and let me know I would be okay,
Hmm.
and that there would be rescue and healing, and story after story after story, and it's just among all the evil and the vile, the filth and the dysfunction, the beauty, the glory, and the redemption, and to see what King Jesus takes, which is so attacked and meant to be, just infested and destroyed forever. And he just turns it and glorifies it and just makes it beautiful and perfect and so good. And I celebrate that. That warms my heart, and it's fuel for me to fight another day, because good infinitely outweighs the evil. We're seeing a lot of evil right now, because I think we're in a time when that's meant to be allowed to happen. So we all just get a gutful and go, enough.
Yeah.
Like, can we say enough already? Can we
Hmm.
can we finally all stand up and point to whatever that is and say no, America? Because I'm there,
Yeah.
and I encourage everybody else to get there. The only way you can't be on that line with me is not to look at it and not to face it. And evil prevails when good men do nothing. And I would say it's no longer okay to turn away. And we can all do something, even if it's pray.
Yeah.
Pray hard, pray fervently, pray passionately, because what we pray echoes in the heavens, and God does hear us, and He does answer prayer. And but there's a lot more that we can do too. So we can be
Yeah.
His hands and feet down here, and we can minister and love on a lot of people. We can rescue children. We can help arrest bad guys. We can fund projects. We can vote. We can peacefully protest. I'm not talking about the violent rioting that we're seeing from one side of the aisle. We can literally peacefully let it known that we love the children. We will not tolerate this
Yeah.
industrial scale child trafficking. So there's the beauty. I just want everybody to realize that is what we need to be focused on. That's why we fight. That's what we want to bring about. That's what we are about. And
Yeah.
so we're willing to stand up and
Have
help
you
bring it.
seen have you seen your men change, the men on your team as they've gotten involved in this? I mean, I can't imagine, I could see that these are tough guys who've seen a lot of stuff. And then maybe they didn't realize exactly the spiritual war that they were signing up for whenever they got involved with your work.
It's such a beautiful question, because yes, and I laugh because I can't even describe how much. So, um, first of all, I'm radically changed, and I'm embarrassed to look back and see who I was in some ways. I've always believed in being a good person. I've always wanted to be humble and selfless and all this, but it's not until you get really close to the light that you realize, baby, you ain't it. You know what I mean? Like, when I get closer to the Father and deep prayer and reading the Word, and He shows us and He reveals to us how He is and how He means for us to be. If we want to match our heart posture to His, if we want to calibrate ourselves to love what He loves and hate the dysfunction and the abuse that He hates, when you start to get close enough to where you can feel Him and you can see what He stands for and begin to comprehend the magnitude of His love and the mercy He has and the forgiveness, the redemption, the grace that He has on those of us that just seem to screw up by the numbers, and He's just like, I got you, it's okay. When you begin to comprehend that, you realize how far you are from that, because it's an impossible quality from the human condition, a human perspective. But the good news is the door's wide open, and we've got the free will to make ourselves like Him as close as we can with whatever time we have. So, yeah, my team are doing that. We are growing. We are learning. We are through a series of things. Each of us need to be um, taken under the sledgehammer in different ways. There's a lot of ego dismantlement that's necessary and good. Um, my whole sniper team from the SEAL team I was on at DevGru were together at a NASCAR race 2 weeks ago. and we were just catching up. And 3 out of the 4 of us have been radically saved and just living for Jesus Christ and running to the Father and trying to hey, improve as quickly as we can, right? And in that imperfect journey, we're laughing about it, but we're talking about the wisdom that we're learning and the qualities that we're embracing and how we're applying those things in our lives. And the 4th member of the team, another fantastic, good dude. He's just not doesn't describe himself as a Christian yet, and I pray for him that he finds it too. But he was remarking like, my gosh, you guys have really grown and changed. And he was seeing the quality and the values and the ethic, the standards that we subscribe to now. Because he worked with us. I mean, we were hard pipe hitting operators, man. We were all over the world together doing some very difficult things at the highest level, counter-terrorist operations. And so we were always a harmonious crew, always cared about each other, and it was always good. We worked hard. We did well. But now this whole aspect of our manhood, because, we're all men in that crew, just our humanity, how we're choosing to develop who we are, the spiritual room of our house that we never quite built out. Like, I should finish that spiritual room in myself. And it ends up being the most gigantic and glorious room ever. Like, why did I wait so long to develop that side, that aspect of who I am as a person? So, yes, ma'am, we've changed. We've seen the journey, and look, we deal with the demonic. We when we encounter people who have been harmed, a lot of times they have been demonized through ritual ceremonies, through rape, through anger and bitterness and unforgiveness in their own heart at the horrible things that happen to them. There's a whole set of injustices that happen to these victims and children, and there's a lot of healing for them and those who harm the children. A lot of times, it's not natural to want to harm a precious little child, right? That's a supernaturally given notion. Where does that even come from, Danielle? Where does it even harm the child, rape the child, abuse the child, burn the child's feet? Like what? Right? So the fallen are all about that. And so we come to face with it, and we have to be close to the Father, because a lot of people, I don't know what percentage of the American populace or your listeners would really know this for sure, but those who are in these satanic cult groups and witches covens, depending on what level they're at, there is a level of power and supernatural gifts that they can exercise. Now, it always comes at a cost. The cost is never worth it, and it's foolish, and it's doomed, and they are going to burn in hell for all eternity unless they throw themselves on their face before the Father and repent and literally turn their ways. But there is a power, or they wouldn't do it. So there's supernatural things that they exercise, and so we come across these people. We need to win, and so we need to be close to the one that has more power than they do. No matter what level they're at, their God, small g, or their Lord, their dark Lord, was created by my Heavenly Father, by my Lord and Savior. And so I'd rather have the victor, the creator, not the created, the infinite rather than the finite.
Yeah.
So that's another reason we need to draw close to the Father through this. And it's painful to witness. And so we have protections and healing for us. And the ladies that see so much of the filth that these predators express and attempt to do to the children. There needs to be protection and healing for all of this. So in that, it's necessary to be close to the Father, and Jesus is so beautiful in that space.
Yeah.
That that's something I want to just run around and tell everybody about. You want everybody to have it, but they don't. And unless somebody's ready in their life, they're not ready to open that door. You want to just run and grab, you need Jesus. He's so awesome. But I remember when I was a kid, when people I'd be like, that's too much. I'm not that religious. Well, it's not about religion. It's about a literal, true relationship with the Creator. And it's so beautiful. But, I think we each have to get there in our own journey. And there's a timing when it's right for us, when we examine and have a closer look. I'm like, oh, wow, why did I wait so long? So,
I feel like we're going down a rabbit trail, but I want to go down this rabbit trail. So I have never until this year really, maybe it was the end of last year. I think it was this year when Pete Hegseth was in going through the ringer to become SecDef.
hmm.
That was the first time I really saw someone in action use what I would call the shield of faith. They would come after him so hard about his indiscretions in the past and all these accusations, and he would say, "But my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ." And he literally used his faith as a shield against their accusations. Are you guys like really legitimately understanding the armor of God and seeing it in action when y'all are operating in those horribly dark places?
Yes,
Does that
ma'am.
resonate at all?
It does. It does. I've had two personal, I'll call them epiphanies. It's probably just basic to any strong Christian, but for me, they've two things have come to me in deep prayer about this. And one, um, I was praying, and God revealed to me, because I was at the moment I was praying gratitude for all these attacks against me. What the cabal or the corrupt will do against you if they can't just kill you, or they don't care to because it's bad optics or whatever. They'll smear you. So
Mm,
they send these lunatics with no job, no home, to smear you with different video and news articles. Although they're not journalists, they're just lunatics that publish a bunch of stuff
yeah.
and try to make themselves look like a journalist. But anyway, they're not backed by any institution or anything, because that would come accountability. These people are not accountable. You can't, even if you beat them in a court of law, yeah, for millions of dollars, you can't collect. So they don't have anything, right? So the smearing, 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 and I was like, Father, I don't feel it. At first, I was like, man, why do you think I'm, dear hater out there? Why do you feel like I'm a horrible person? Why do you believe those horrible things about me that you're publishing? Well,
Yeah.
they don't believe those horrible things. They're paid to do it.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I don't feel it anymore. We've beaten these people in courts of law. They still smear, and people are like, so and so smearing you. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
What we're really doing, we can demonstrate. And I don't feel their filth anymore. I'm like, Father, can I just thank you for that right now? Can I just tell you how beautiful? Like I see these fiery darts, but they fall short. Like there's not even there. I mean, I know it, but it's like they're not hitting me. And he said to me, that's your shield of faith, son.
Mm,
And that's why he goes, you know me now well enough to know that it's all mine, and that I want you doing what you're doing. And your faith that I've got you covered is why you're not feeling the impact. They can squabble, but I'm not only going to let them get so close and have so much effect. And he goes, that's why their flaming arrows are falling short, because I got you and you know it. And
that's
that
so cool.
knowing, that faith is your shield that's protecting you. That's why they're not hitting you. That's why they're not hitting you in here, because your shield of faith. Do you understand? I'm like, oh man, do I ever. Now, thank you for that. Right. And I guess if I told most normal Christians that, they'd be like, well, yeah, shield of faith. That's what that is. I'm like, but this was just a deeper knowing, right? The
Yeah.
comprehension of it. And another was the shoes of peace. And it was essentially, I was praying for peace over some people that I care about. And he was like, again, it's in knowing that in the end, because I am God, It's like be still and know, right? It's that is what he's letting me know. Like be still and know that I am God. Like that's it. That's ball game,
Yeah.
um, game, set, match, or whatever. Um, so it was in knowing that in the end, it's all going to be okay. That's your shoes of peace. I'm like, oh, that's two, Father. I can't wait for the others. But he's given me two specific lessons on the full armor of God, and I'm just so grateful for those moments when it just comes. Boof, he just drops an I don't know. They say that spiritual communication or real prayer, it's telepathic. You don't hear the words audibly, but the knowing falls upon you as though
Yeah.
someone had said the words, and you're like, why do I understand this thing right now where I didn't a minute ago? That's
Mm-hmm.
cool.
That's super
And
cool.
so I'm just so thankful for that. So yeah, we're using our full armor of God all the time, and we know it's there, and we're developing it, and it's a journey. It's a growth. It's a course of exercising our free will and then our faith. And we're imperfect, and we're walking this journey towards our heavenly Father, and we're doing it in good faith, and He's blessing it, and we're growing tremendously and stronger, and we're growing stronger together, and greater gratitude all the time. So the way that this team is morphing and growing and elevating is very beautiful to me, and including all my immediate family now have gone all in on the mission.
Wow.
And at first, 8 years ago, they were all keeping it at arm's length because it was ugly,
Yeah.
and they didn't want to deal with it. And now they're all standing right next to me, digging in and fighting. And I'm like, and I didn't ask them to. One at a time, they came saying, "I want to stand next to you and fight. I want to help you, Papa.
That's
I
amazing.
want to help you, honey. I want to lock shields with you. I see you out there working so hard. I want to just make sure that I'm with you too." I'm like, okay. So everybody has their own timing because, you know, um, the two ladies in my life are both trauma survivors from childhood. So I respected their space until they were ready, you know.
Yeah.
But now they're fierce, fierce warriors.
I believe it. Probably amongst the fiercest.
Our daughter intimidates us all, man. That's a whole different story.
Well, I want to pick up on a thread. You talked about the industrial scale of this horror of child
Yeah.
trafficking, and it connects in. I first became aware of your work when you had a press conference back last September with Mark
Mm,
Fincham, who
yep.
was an Arizona State Senate candidate
Yeah.
at the time. He's now been elected, and it was then Millerville, Tennessee Chief of Police Sean Taylor, who I believe has since resigned. Y'all were exposing the reality of corruption, and it was darker and more, uh, I don't even know how to say, seedy and interconnected than most normal humans' ability to even conceive of,
Yeah.
with political campaign funds, human trafficking, drug trafficking, blackmail, mortgage fraud, and more and more and more. Would you talk a little bit about what it was that the team had uncovered at that point, and if there's any updates in that case that you're able to share?
Yeah. Here's the update. The update is there are still holdovers from the previous administration blocking justice
Hmm.
in that Millersville case and in all the high level corruption cases that assistant chief had been a part of in multiple task forces over the past 14 years. So justice and all of that corruption is being blocked by somebody in this current administration that's a holdover from the previous. So
Okay.
there are still gatekeepers that are blocking good faith investigations that should be tearing down the entire rancid kingdom of what's going on in not just Tennessee, but especially around Nashville. It's just absolutely gutter trash corruption. judges, DAs, chiefs of police, sheriffs, you name it, politicians. Not everybody, but some are utterly corrupt in each position there. And we're talking about child trafficking, murder, and cover up of those crimes and all that. So that's really the update. There's a major RICO case that would tear all that down, and a lot of it's being the war's been made over that. So we ran a sting operation there, and we got one arrest and 70 warrants for more. And there was a local reporter who's tied into all the corruption there, who lost his ever loving mind and just basically fell down in public, throwing a temper tantrum and trying to have the chief of police fired and the assistant chief of police fired. Of course, the city council wasn't going to do that because they hired these guys to build a new legitimate police force there, which they had. So you had 15 straight cops, hand selected, after that small town PD had been corrupt in years past. So the city council brought in a new chief of police, brought in Assistant Chief Taylor, and they brought in hand-selected straight cops, and we ran this operation. Man, we ran into the mother lode. I'm like, what the heck is going on in this region? Why are there so many child predators? And why are they so bold and so vile and vulgar? And just, it was clear that there was little to no enforcement against child trafficking in Nashville or Millersville, just north of Nashville, which meant the whole Nashville region.
Yeah.
And man, before those warrants could be served, there was so much panic by the dark side and the corrupt to try to block those warrants, because what the reporter said was that he knew that we had the technology to exploit all the data and all the smart devices of all the child predators that we caught and served warrants on, to see who controlled all the money, where all the money was flowing, and all the contacts and the travel and all of it. So imagine being part of the corrupt cabal that is involved in hundreds of billions of dollars in real estate loan fraud to launder their money, and BRICS nations funding to provide municipal bonds is side deals and payouts to corrupt installed politicians. Imagine all that kingdom of your child trafficking, the narco trafficking, and murder for hire, and all that to be exposed. So they went into full flail state panic, mainly through this reporter. And then they brought in Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, a corrupt arm of TBI, and they raided the local Millersville Police Department, took all of the evidence of high-level organized crime and all the evidence of the sting operation, and they seized it. And then months later, they returned all the rest of the stuff that they had stolen, but they kept all of the evidence for the high-level organized crime and all the evidence to the sting operation, which tells you which corruption they mean to hide, what they were protecting. And so, if Dan Bongino and Kash Patel purged the FBI should go investigate Tennessee Bureau of Investigations and find out why they seized that evidence, and ransack them and act on that evidence and make all those arrests according to the factual evidence, and then give those people a fair trial based on the evidence. And but they won't do that. So that's the wicked beast, the bladder of which we punctured with that sting operation there. And so the ramifications are still rippling, but that's being fought over because so many of the corrupt who are connected are being protected right now, which means according to the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, each child predator on average harms 70 children in their lifetime. So if that's accurate, then 71 child predator arrests and warrants would equal 4,970 children that would be raped or not according to whether or not those 71 predators get put away. So that everybody at TBI and everybody at that news station have those children's blood on their hands and their souls, those children's souls on their hands for stopping the warrants on those vile predators who had incriminated themselves multiple times over. So it's hideous to see this, serpent just hissing and squealing when exposed, when surprised by a little sting operation. Hey, it just, it's been a wake up for us. Like, holy cow, what did we bump into there in Nashville?
Yeah.
What rancid crime is being covered up? Well, we know now. So, but it's still being fought over to keep the prosecutions from happening. So that'd be a global case. There's a lot of corruption, and it ties into the Diddy and Epstein and Weinstein cabal networks of corruption and a lot of others. At the highest level, a lot of these people share the same lawyers and agents and managers and resort vacations and all this kinds of stuff, and money managers and a lot of that. And they're very closely tied. You don't have to research very far up the chain of command. You can see where they're very, very incestuous and very, very closely knit.
Well, my ears perked up when I heard about corrupt DA Letitia James being investigated for mortgage fraud or charged for mortgage fraud, because you don't hear that every day. And I knew about the connection in Tennessee, that being kind of the red flag that unwound a lot of this stuff. And so it'll be interesting to see if she gets swept up in this.
Yeah. It's strange. It's like, there'll be somebody in a gatekeeper position within our judicial system or our government system. And, agents will say, hey, man, we've got this one case. We need further authorization and funding or whatever. We're going to go in and make these arrests. And somebody will tell them, no, you're not. You're going to go work on something else instead. And I'm like, wait a minute. Well, we have the evidence. We know it happened. We know this person or these people are guilty of these horrendous crimes. And they'll just be told, no, you're going to go work on something else instead. And that's when they realize, ooh, it's corrupt. We're not allowed to operate in good faith. This is disgusting. Yeah. So, I have people letting me know in good faith, confide in me that, they're running into that. So, Tennessee, man, I hope you don't live near Nashville, because your children are not protected. And there's rancid child trafficking, and what's behind it is pretty evil and dark stuff there. So I hope you don't live near Nashville, because the justice system there is broken.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was listening to a show on Badlands Media called the Devolution Power Hour, and they were doing a review of the Mike Lindell case. And one of the themes that popped up in that case was the number of people inside the government that Mike tried to share evidence of election fraud with, and every stop of the way he got blocked. And so I think these blockers are probably all part of the same web, even though it's quote unquote different issues. The issue is ultimately all the same. It's the overthrow of the country.
It is. Yeah, it's that same old, it's the agenda of the fallen, which is their ultimate agenda is one world order under the Antichrist in the future. But they want to consolidate all nations. That's why they're for open borders. It's not for anything compassionate or they put everything under the banner of, oh, we're for the little guy, or we're for the less fortunate. No, these people are ruthless, brutal psychopaths, and they want to erase all borders so they can consolidate everybody. And they want to, if you'll read their Agenda 2030 or Agenda 21 documentation, what they propose, and just listen to what they say at the World Economic Forum, they'll talk about how they want to eradicate like 90% of the world's population or something like that, because they see people as just cattle. and maybe not even that. And so that's not a normal or healthy thing. They want to spin to us that everything is broken and everything's toxic and we can't survive like this. Well, there in truth there's abundance. It's just that we live very close to each other in the big cities. But when you fly over the nation, you'll see
Yeah.
overwhelming space. There's nobody there, right? There's wide open. There's plenty of resources if we're wise with it. So there's no need to eradicate resort to genocide. But these people are that sick. So that's what it's about. It's a Marxist model, and so it's the worst form of communism. It's it's a it's tyrannical, and that's what they're after. And so nobody would vote for that knowingly, so they spin it, and it's democratic socialism. They always call it democratic socialism uh, around the world. Before even, what was it, 25 countries, and I think over 100 million people eradicated in government-sponsored genocide over the past century. And they always call it democratic socialism before you realize it's really the guerrilla rape fan of global Marxism
Yeah.
is what they're really after. So shame on people for not researching and looking behind these people's agenda and funding and seeing what they're really about. But more and more Americans are figuring it out now.
Yeah.
They see all these false flag events. They see the manipulation. They see these protests that don't make any sense. And the people that are protesting don't know what they're protesting about. And so people are starting to awaken at all the manipulation and the deceit and the betrayal and go, wait a minute, that's not what you told us it was about. So it's a process and it's awakening. And sometimes awakening process is painful. Like, right? If you
Yeah.
wake up and your house is being flooded, that's not very fun,
Yeah.
but it beats the alternative. You can stay asleep and drown, but
Yeah.
you can wake up and get out. Or if your house is on fire, same thing. The awakening may be a little bit painful, but you got to be, if you want to survive, you want to be part of any solution, you need to be awake and alert, situation awareness, right? So that's it. That's what we're in. We're in an awakening phase. And I think we're supposed to awaken and see whatever's happening, whether you think it's good, bad, or indifferent. And we're supposed to collectively make a choice on whether we're going to allow it or revolt against it and say no to evil.
Yeah.
So that's where I believe we're at. And all indicators seem to point to the same thing. And I hope we choose wisely.
I hope so too. I think the people that I have met that are awake are certainly, I don't think, too willing to sit on their laurels any longer. They recognize that awakening comes with a calling. It comes
Yeah.
with a mandate for action, because the inaction is why we are where we are.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. At some point, you got to realize, what are you going to lose?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
They're gonna take your
They're
country from you. They're gonna take freedom
exactly.
from you, and they're gonna enslave you and abuse everyone you care about. So are you gonna resist early on when it's more effective and more possible to do it, or are you gonna wait until you're literally under their boot in a cage and try to resist when you're just gonna get a bullet to the back of the head?
Yeah. In your operations, what percentage are you seeing of rescued individuals who were trafficked in across the open borders?
Well, we do rescue children and even adults when we can, but what we mostly do is we arrest the predators
Okay.
because it's illegal to move a child without the child's parents' power of attorney and with a warrant from law enforcement. So once you have those two things, you don't need a third party nonprofit org like us. So we do what we can do, which is the occasional rescue, but usually it's arrest the predators and stop them from raping 70 children that they would have gotten around to. So that's the solution that we've come up with in a forbidding country where it seems to be rigged against helping the children.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't really be able to tell you percentage as far as domestic or international. certainly when the Biden administration was in, the border was wide open, and it was all about child trafficking. I mean, it
Yeah.
was government sponsored. The government was literally partaking in the trafficking of children and ensuring they got into the hands of abusers. Health and Human Services was contracting a company called MVM out of Northern Virginia that normally contract to the CIA, and they were contracting them to covertly move children into the interior of the United States in the middle of the night when it's illegal to land past midnight in some of these smaller airfields, and they're landing with illegal tail numbers that they're sticking on with vinyl graphics with each flight, and with illegal manifests that say cargo instead of souls, when as many as 30 children are taken off the aircraft
Wow.
and shoved into private vehicles and buses and raced off the dark airfield at high speed. And that stretch of highway is cleared from its local law enforcement um, patrol, right? So that there's the level of corruption and cooperation that we were seeing under the Biden administration, and Border Patrol agents seeing children with notes safety pinned to their underwear of an apartment in Miami, for as one example. And I had one Border Patrol agent tell me, "Yeah, I've seen 30 other people from 3 different Hispanic nations with that same address in the same day
Oh my
as
God.
their permanent address as that child had." And we sent the child without any parents, in a van to go be driven over there. It's like, wow,
Unbelievable.
what level of you know of
Depravity.
dysfunction you have to fall
Yeah.
into as a nation when you're just doing that. And so there's certainly, it was a lot coming across internationally, and it was wide open. That's been pretty much locked down now. There's a lot more Border Patrol enforcement happening right now. Having been there all along over the last 8 years, I've seen it come and go, and they are patrolling it pretty hard right now in good faith. So I'm encouraged by that, and I give Tom Homan a lot of credit for that,
Yeah.
and President Trump, because they're both all about it. I don't know President Trump personally. I know Tom Homan personally, and he is determined to get control of that border for everybody's safety, and so I do celebrate that. And but a lot domestically, they're targeted through a lot of times Child Protective Services will target a single mom and take her kids from her and put them into foster care system, and then a couple families later the child is claimed to have been a runaway, but really they're sold, and they're sold into slavery and then treated like a commodity and raped and murdered or whatever they're doing, buried in a hole somewhere or burned alive, I don't know. But it's just, so there's both. There's a lot of both. A lot of
Yeah.
runaways end up in these groups. They could get recruited into these groups of perversion and trafficking, and anywhere they can get them. And now that the border is enjoying a lot better safety and control, the traffickers that are used to an appetite of moving and getting paid for X number of children per month, now they're looking for any child they can get. So Americans, please watch your children very, very closely, because just because you're in a nice area doesn't mean your child can't disappear in a heartbeat. And I'm not trying to have people be terrorized and steal your joy. I'm just saying be aware so that your child doesn't become a statistic like that, because usually when they disappear, you don't get them back because of
These
what's being done.
operations that you're running, you're picking up predators. Are you finding, I mean, they're networked together. These are predators that are trafficking. Are they like lone? What is the prevalence of like a lone predator?
Not usually lone predators, almost always a network, because that's how the money functions. Now, you will have kids trafficking themselves or each other in some cases. Mommy's a crack addict and daddy's nowhere to be found, and or they never knew who their daddy was, and
Yeah.
there's drugs around, and the children are unsupervised, and they're just making their way and fending for themselves, or an aunt or a neighbor is trafficking them. There's that kind of lone predator or trafficker kind of scenario. But usually everything that we've seen is networked, it's organized, and I would say even globally. So,
We've seen a couple of whistleblowers from the HHS, the contractor. A woman in particular came out and was obviously very ridiculed by the mainstream media for her
oh, Tarly
whistleblowing.
Rodas, bless her. No, she's a friend of mine too, I'm proud to say. And, it takes a lot of moral courage to stand up and speak what people don't want to hear, but is true and needs to be acted upon to save countless lives. So bless her, and shame
Yeah,
on anybody who's attacked that woman for doing
absolutely.
that for the children.
Have you
I'm sorry,
heard
but
of no, have you heard
continue.
of any other whistleblowers that maybe just aren't making
There's a
headlines?
there's another young man named Carlos who was a driver, and he was literally delivering the children to people
Oh
he could
God.
see were, because he'd been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
He could see that these people are cartel. These people are abusers. These people are traffickers. They're not foster families or their not biological parents. And so um, he was telling his supervisors at HHS, "Hey, you just had me deliver children who I know were traffickers and cartel." And he said what he described was that his supervisors basically told him, like, "So get back to work, and because there's more. Like, hurry up, you're going to get behind."
Oh
Standing
my
here talking
God.
to us. So those people need to be dealt with
Yeah.
legally. That's lust for power and greed. When you don't care about a precious innocent child, you're very broken, and you don't have any business in our government. In fact, I would say you don't have any business in society if that's how you think. But certainly, we don't have to employ them in our government anymore
That's
once
right.
they've revealed that that's how they tick, or fail to tick.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I know we're probably running up on time, but I saw recently you put a social media post out calling for any to be connected to any good DAs who are willing to prosecute trafficking cases. Can you talk about where you may want, if you have any targeted areas that you are interested in pursuing, or how can people get in touch with you to connect you with their DA if they're willing to prosecute?
We are interested in any place that has a good DA left, who with any moral courage, with any integrity, with any honor, who will simply do their job that they were elected or hired to do. We want to meet those district attorneys, and and strike up a relationship with them. We'll share with them how we do what we do, and then we can set up and run operations there.
Great.
So that's all we need. We need a DA. Doesn't matter. Law enforcement can run an op, and great op, and they can present the best case on planet Earth. But if the DA is a Soros plant, they won't prosecute, and so
Yeah.
nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's what we need, and we also need good AUSAs federally, and we can work with them, and we can prosecute the crimes federally. So please connect us if you know good people who love children and are not corrupt and will do their jobs. Please connect us to them, because that's how all the good things start. We
Yeah.
start with those relationships and go from there.
And the best way to get in touch with you is just through the website?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's Vets for Child Rescue. I'll put it in the show notes,
Okay.
but is it
Yeah.
Vets the number 4 Child Rescue?
Childrescue.org. And the shorter version is also v4cr.org.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And you also have some need for some financial support right now. Would you talk about what you're seeking support for and how people can support your work to rescue children or to put away bad guys?
Yes, ma'am. We've got two major needs right now that are immediate. One, we're onboarding an investigations and intelligence team who I've known for years and are fantastic. They work together. Um, uh, Drone operator and intelligence um, collectors and investigators, and they've extensive backgrounds, and they're just really good at what they do. I've wanted to be able to bring them on board, but we haven't been able to afford them. And they were once upon a time with another institution, and now the door is open for us to pull them in. And I'm grateful for that window of opportunity, but we've got to rally the funding right now and do that, and to pull them in full time, and begin using them for the talent that they bring and the capability and the connections. So that's one thing that I'm really excited to be able to do. And the other is we're shooting a documentary, and we're exposing an institution that is utterly corrupt at the top. And many people know, but a lot of people still don't. And at the top of this institution is, I'll just say it is utterly evil. All of their top personnel are literally Satanists, and people won't believe it. Well, some will that are in that institution, but we're going to have to show the people the factual evidence, just so that they can't say that it's not true. And that's the rest of the fact gathering and the footage and everything for that documentary, that we still need to do quite a bit of travel and gather. So we're asking people that really want to see this satanic abuse stopped, for countless children to reach out to us and consider helping us get this done, because there are a lot of the good things that can come from that very quickly. This will make a real impact on real lives in very short order. So look, it's all God's, and it takes some of us that are just willing to go face the bad guys and do the work, and God will bless it. So that's what we do, and we're grateful for it.
Amazing. Well, we're grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you and the work that your teams do. And I'd love to get you back when you're ready to promote the documentary, so people will be able to check it out, and to continue to get updates from you. Any parting thoughts, any encouragement to people on how they could get involved in their own communities?
Yeah, well, I'll say we uh, weekend before this past one, we ran an op in Idaho, and we got 3 more child predator arrests, and the host agency says there's probably going to be more than 10
Wow.
additional warrants on that one. And so the train is still chugging forward, and I would say picking up momentum this summer, because there's a few others that we want to run this year. But how can people get involved? We've put a lot of tools on our website. Our website's pretty extensive, and there's a lot of tools on there that you can choose from to see what it is that you want to do. Like, pick your lane of influence. How do you want to work or serve? Or there's political options, and there's financial options, and there's grassroots options, and there's tech options and things like that. You can choose and see what it is that you feel like you want to do, either there locally or nationally, or through our org or any other. But just get involved, do something, because what I found is when you do what's good, what's meant, what's right, you get blessed, and you feel good in return. And it's just a cool aspect of being selfless and giving to others. That's how the Creator wants us to be. It's pleasing to Him, so He blesses people for it. And it's addictive. Once you go and you're like, man, it doesn't need to be all about me anymore, and you just go and help people, and God blesses you. You're like, wow. That's the stuff money can't buy. So I would say find your lane and exercise it, and you will not be disappointed. You will not be sorry that you did a good thing for someone else.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for persisting with all of the all of the little difficulties we ran into along the way to get you here. I appreciate you so much, and my blessings and thanks to your team as well.
Thank you so much, Danielle. God bless.
God bless you. Awesome.